Hey, what's up, guys? Clutch City Entertainment here, back with another video. And today we are joined with a special guest as the NFL draft is tomorrow. We are joined here by Sean Pendergast, the co-host of the Fane and Pendergast show on Sports Radio 610. Thank you so much for coming on, Sean. Today we're going to go over what to expect from the NFL draft, positions we need, and maybe a couple players we want Texans to draft. But I'm going to start here with Jacob. Jacob, draft is tomorrow. Very exciting. What should we look for the Texans to do? Even though they don't have a pick tomorrow, what should we expect them to do for the draft? Or could we see them also be selecting on tomorrow?
Well, I could see them moving back into the first if one of these guys that they like falls. I think positions will probably target. I think DT and defensive tackle and corner are probably the two positions right now that I think are the most logical ones. So if a guy like Newton falls or maybe a Kool-Aid McKinstry falls, then I could see the Texans moving back into the first. But it's always interesting, even if we don't have a pick, to see who gets to the second. And then you could see that day two, maybe they make a move up in the second if one of the guys they like is still there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, what are you thinking for tomorrow? Is Casero going to be active?
Well, he'll be active. I don't know if it's going to come to fruition in anything that we see. He's always active. He's on the phone all the time, talking
Oh yeah.
deals and looking at different scenarios. So if nothing happens tomorrow that we see, it doesn't mean he wasn't working the phones trying to get something done. I don't. I think if there's any move tomorrow that we see the Texans make that comes to the surface that all of us get to see and consume and break down, it'll be something in the probably in that 24 to 32 range. I think a lot of stuff's going to get pushed down in this draft to the Texans. And I think that's a big reason why they're at 42 right now, honestly. Like, I think they traded back to 42, knowing that we may have to be comfortable drafting at 42 because the price to move up may get a little too high. I think the other scenario that might make moving back into the first round a little difficult is how quarterback hungry so many of these teams are. That if it gets too costly for, say, Denver or New Orleans or Minnesota, really Denver and Minnesota are the two, and the Raiders, all the ones that are in that 11 through 15 range right there. If it's too pricey for them to move up and get into that top four, you start to see Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. start to push down to the back end of the first round, and maybe you see one of them come back up into the first round, so they get that fifth-year option on them. So there's a lot of moving parts. At the end of the day, I don't think the Texans are going to have a first-round pick, but just the anticipation of the possibility of it makes it a really exciting first round.
I love how you mentioned the fact that it's going to be very heavy in the first round based on quarterbacks, wide receivers, linemen, as we see in your background. CJ Stroud's throwing the ball while being protected by Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah, that's the
You
Cincinnati game right there.
Yeah,
That's the
you
highlights of the
have
Cincy
Nico
game.
Collins and Tank Dell. The Texans have a luxury of not having to address positions that are going to be addressed by everyone else in the first round. So Nick Caserio should really just have a pocket group of players like, okay, they're falling. Like Jacob said, Donnie Newton, Willie McKinstry. If
Mm-hmm.
those guys fall, then okay, now pick 26 is here, 27. Now we're gonna make a move to go get our guy. But ideally, Nick Casario also have other guys. He's like, okay, we
Yeah.
can settle for them at 35. If we want to trade, pick 35, 37.
Yeah.
We'll stay at 42. Hope that your guy is still there. And that's what scouting departments have to do. They have to be able to identify those guys that they like, but also at the value that they can get them. So for me, the one guy that I want the Texans to lead the draft with, as we kind of go around the table here, is going to be Edgerrin Cooper. I hope that the Texans can stay at pick 42 and
Mm-hmm.
just be able to select Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker from Texas A&M, because I feel like he's a positionless kind of player. He changes your defense with his explosive nature. He screams Houston Texan, swarm, D'Amico Ryans, and I can't imagine the things that D'Amico Ryans would do with Edgerrin Cooper. So I guess it's your guys' turn now. You're one player that you could leave the draft with. You're the
I'll let
Texans.
I'll let Jacob go first.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. So for me, I've always been huge on Chris Jenkins from Michigan. I think as a
Love it.
fit and a guy that D'Amico would like on the interior, he's maybe a little bit undersized, but he has the physical tools and he's quick off the ball and he's a great run defender and he has the ability to develop in the pass rushing game. I think that's a perfect defensive tackle and uh, at a position of need as well. And I agree with you, Drew, about Cooper. We've talked about Cooper before, and I'm
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
an A&M guy, so I would love Cooper here. But Jenkins would be my one guy.
If I'm being practical, I would say you got to come away with something on the defensive side of the ball. There's more holes defensively than there are offensively right now. So the practical side of me, the one that the one that's eating granola bars and salads and things like that, says you got to come away with defensive lineman. And I would say I like Braden Fisk a lot from Florida State. I like what he brings to the table. Love his motor. I know he's got kind of short arms. Like the measurables aren't necessarily what the first round guys are, but the film is really, really good on him. I like him a lot. If I were to have a cheat day, as Stephon Diggs likes to tweet about, where I'm eating some chips and I'm drinking things with heavy carbs in it and whatnot, Ladd McConkey from Georgia would be mine. I would love to see Ladd McConkey from Georgia in this offense with CJ Stroud, with all these other weapons. I don't know that I see them taking a receiver at 42, but McConkey might fit the category of someone they might have high enough on their list, or if he's slipping to that 28 to 33 range, that if they like him enough, they might go after him. And he sort of fits that description of what DeMeco had for what he looks for in a receiver from back at the combine, where DeMeco's vision of a receiver, make no mistake, Nick Caserio is drafting guys in the vision of what DeMeco is looking for. Okay. Not that Nick doesn't have input. He's got tremendous input. He's the general manager of the team. But this team is being put together in DeMeco Ryan's vision. And DeMeco said, I like receivers that I just like guys that get open. I like guys that on third down, they move the chains and you get the ball. And we know from this offense, they love getting the ball to guys in space where they can get ahead of steam and get their hands on the ball, some run after catch. I think McConkey would be fun as hell to watch in this offense. And I think we got to keep in mind, Stephon Diggs is only here for a year. And now after looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown extension today, who knows what the Nico Collins world looks like now as far as how pricey that extension is. So I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world that they would look at a receiver at 42. I think one of those 3 picks on day 2 is going to be a receiver, in my opinion. And maybe Mechie looks as good as CJ Stroud is saying he's looking in those workouts. CJ's been very complimentary of John Mechie III. So my practical one, I know I'm giving you 2 and you asked for 1, which that makes me the worst.
I love it.
But yeah, but Braden Fisk would be my nutritious one, and Ladd McConkey would be my junk food sweet tooth one.
Well, if there's one thing for sure, this draft is going to be different from any other the Texans have had recently. They're not picking up 1, 2, or 3, but they're in a great spot to elevate their roster. Thank you so much, Sean.
It's going to be weird, dude. Hang on before we go. Yeah. It's going to be weird.
No, go
sitting around the whole first round after the last 2 years, right?
Yeah. No, but there's limitless possibilities. Being at pick 42 is okay, guys.
Not bad.
It's okay that we don't have a first round pick. Nick Caserio is going to be active. Texans are going to be just fine as they look to kind of maximize what they have on their roster. Again, thank you, Sean, for coming on.
For sure.
And we'll see you guys hopefully with plenty of content during and after the draft. Peace.
Keep up the great work, fellas.